We have some breaking news. We now have a readout from the White House on the 1 hour and 20-minute meeting that President Biden had tonight with Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema. A White House official says the president hosted Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema at the White House tonight for a candid and respectful exchange of views about voting rights. Well, that much we already knew. We knew that's what was on the agenda, so the White House isn't telling us so far anything about what was said in that meeting. I'm sure pieces of it will leak out overnight. Our next guest, Michigan Representative Haley Stevens, filed an official complaint with the U.S. Capitol Police about Republican Congresswoman Margie Taylor Greene. Congresswoman Stevens said, "I am concerned about the mental health of my colleague from Georgia and would like Capitol Police to address her dangerous threats in my workplace, just as we would in any school or job site. We cannot let calls for gun violence go unchecked." Congresswoman Stevens filed the complaint after Marjorie Taylor Greene said this: "Democrats, they hate our Second Amendment because ultimately the truth is it's our Second Amendment rights, our right to bear arms that protects Americans and gives us the ability to defend ourselves from a tyrannical government." And I hate to use this language, but Democrats, they're doing exactly what our founders talked about when they gave us the precious rights that we have. Joining our discussion now is Democratic Congresswoman Haley Stevens of Michigan. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. What did you hear in those comments by Marjorie Taylor Greene about the Second Amendment?
Look, this is no longer acceptable to call on violence in a workplace. This is about a month and a half, Lawrence, after a school shooting in Oakland County, Michigan. It has rocked our community. We are reeling from this. We are 10 years since the Gabby Gifford shooting, and we are sick of it. All right, I have been on the phone with my volunteers for Moms Demand Action. I got to Congress on a common sense gun safety platform, and I am not going to allow a colleague of mine to push us around and to incite violence. The words matter. The words absolutely matter, and it's no longer acceptable, Lawrence. And I've done this before. You know, Mr. Buck, Congressman Buck, he's got an assault rifle in his office in Capitol Hill. You know, pre-pandemic, when we had students walking through the halls. That's not acceptable. We've got to change our culture. We've got to pass common sense gun safety legislation, certainly honoring the long tradition of, the sports of hunting and riflery. That's fine. Go back to the roots. Stop the violence.
If this were a high school and a student was found writing notes about Second Amendment rights and maybe the Second Amendment needs to be used because some of the students are bothering me or some of the teachers are bothering me, the school administration would have a lot to say to that student.
Yeah, it's called a red flag. It's absolutely called a red flag, and this is something we just lived through back home. That's why I have called this out, because it's personal. And it all ties back. You create a zeitgeist. You create a culture as an elected official through your words. And this is an incitement of violence. And you're absolutely right. And look, I want to applaud our Capitol Police, Lawrence. They work so hard. They've been through a lot. They've been through hell and back. And certainly, their responsibilities, their duties here, I know that they are here trying to protect the safety in an environment that's tense. Look, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a bully. And she's bullying colleagues in the workplace. She started screaming at us after we passed a women's health protection bill, and I backed away because I didn't know if she had a weapon on her. That's immediately what I thought, because that's the culture that she's inciting. It's got to stop. We've got to set the example for our students, and I'm going to call it out.
You know her and you work with her, and you say in about your complaint, you're not sure about her mental health.
Look, her behavior is unhinged. And to say something like that and to double down, to be fined, tens and tens of thousands of dollars for not complying with the basic human decency of wearing a mask as required on the House floor, a flagrant disregard for this pandemic and the rules of the House. What's going on here? And that is, by the way, what these red flag laws are about in some respects, right? Those who've committed crimes, not having access to weapons. Look, I'm not trying to make too many comments here about, from a professional diagnosis standpoint. But what I will say here, Lawrence, is there's something going on with this lady, and it ain't right.
Michigan Member of Congress Haley Stevens, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.